I knew when I grew up, I didn't want to be poor. That was it. That was my goal because I knew what it was like to be poor. I knew what it was like to be really poor. There's a distinction there, trust me. And I knew I did not want either of those in my life or for whoever my partner was, my children. I didn't want that for them. I wanted them to have choices. I wanted them to have a better life than I had.
Welcome to Beyond the Business Plan. I'm LeAnn Lyon, your guide on this journey to success. We will explore the inspiring stories of visionary leaders and groundbreaking entrepreneurs and unveil the tools and strategies that can empower you to manage your business from anywhere in the world. Join me, LeAnn, as we learn, laugh, and take the leap towards unleashing your joyful business journey. And let's make it happen now. What happens when you blend a bold, creative spirit with the courage to reinvent your career? Dennis DM Meador took that leap from the familiar into the unknown and built an inspiring entrepreneurial path marked by grit, reinvention, and a willingness to turn challenge into possibility. Along the way, he became a nationally recognized expert and one of the most respected voices in legal marketing, showing just how powerful it can be to bet on yourself. DM, are you there?
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm in the room.
It's so good to see you in the room. Now, we met years ago. Oh, wait, no, we met 2 days ago.
Basically the same thing.
Basically the same thing. And, sometimes you just meet those people and you're like, you know what, this is a person that has a story that needs to get out, that needs to be shared. And that's how I felt with you. And I'm grateful that we were able to schedule this so quickly because I know, regardless of when this episode drops, next week you're going to be traveling. So it was great to get this in here. Where are you right now?
Right now, I live on an island in Belize. I've been here about 3 years. And so, when we get bored, instead of going out for a milkshake, we go out for a snorkel or, that sort of fun stuff. So it's a little different living on an island. It's like, imagine living on in a very tiny town, really far away from everybody else, but there's a ton of stuff to do. Because the biggest problem in a little town is there's nothing to do. Well, I'm like basically on a resort island. So we've got snorkeling, we've got boating, we've got, any water, ocean, Caribbean activity you can think of.
Oh, amazing. And I really wanted to share that because for aspiring entrepreneurs, where do you want to live? I mean, where do you want to live? And you've been living there for how long?
About 3 years now. Yeah.
Okay.
And we really like it.
Made possible because you took this jump?
Well, no, the jump is new. I've been remote for the majority of my career, off and on since 2001, which I lived in Romania at the time, had a different company. This is 20 years ago. And I ran that business off of dial-up internet and phone cards. And I've always been like, why do I need to be in an office to do this? I'm just going to do it. And so a few years back, my now wife, we came and visited, and she was a school teacher. We met in Tulsa. I was there, had moved there for a short time, be by my sister and cousin. And we came here and she was like, man, this is cool. I love it. We should move here. Like everybody says on vacation. And I said, they just put $1 billion into their internet. They have fiber optic on this island. I'm good. If you want to live here. And she's like, are you serious? And I was like, yeah. So from March until November, we started selling stuff. I had 155 sneakers collection. I started selling that off, and my clothes, had 3 closets full of clothes. It's good I put myself on an island because I am a voracious shopper. It's dangerous. And we got rid of so much stuff and we moved here, and, we love it. We're more travelers. So we weren't looking for a place to settle. We were looking for a place to experience. Now we're kind of looking for our next sort of home base. It might be here, it might be somewhere else, but we travel quite a bit.
Oh, that's amazing. And, to be fair, people who listen to the show often know that I plan to move onto a boat. We think we found it. It's 14 feet wide, it's 40 feet long, and two of us will live on it. It does have separate spaces, so we won't, bump into each other all the time. Although we're married, we don't mind that so much either.
Yeah. Now,
But downsizing is a big part of that.
it is the separate space just like a pull behind little, thing for him that he just has to sit there and be like, I'm sorry.
It does.
Yay!
It does come with a dinghy. It could be towed behind. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not a bad idea to consider. But no, there's an upper salon. Actually, there's 3 spaces because you can actually steer the boat from way up above. You can steer from inside the boat if there's weather. And then there's a lower salon as well as, thankfully, a queen bed in the back.
Nice. Yeah.
So, nice and comfortable. But again, downsizing. So you had to sell off everything though, primarily because you were moving, out of the country. You can't take everything with you when you move out of the country.
You don't want to, and it's very expensive. You got import tax, so they're just like, oh, that's a $3,000 dresser. I bought it 12 years ago. Yep, that'll be 20% tax, or whatever it is. So you got to pay that extra money. So, for us, it didn't make sense to keep all that stuff. Actually, part of this trip, I'm selling my car that I've had for 3 years and drove twice in the last 3 years. And then we're cleaning out our storage unit, which had a bunch of some furniture that we were like, man, we just paid a bunch of money for this bed and this and that. And I can't just, sell it cheap or give it away. Because a lot of stuff we were just like, everything must go, sort of like mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's fun. I think I'm excited now. I'll be fair. I'm not a hoarder by any stretch of the imagination, although we have a significant amount of storage in the home that we currently are in because of things I haven't let go of. And we have adult children now, but yeah, I still have their kindergarten stuff a little bit. Not everything, but it's time to get rid of it. Nobody wants it. I think there's a bit out there to that effect. Like nobody wants your stuff. It's who's that person who's like, love it or leave it?
Marie Kondo.
That's it. It's her book.
Okay. My wife, this is just a few years ago. I think it was after she met me. I don't know if it was because she met me or what, but like we went and visited her mom, or she told. Essentially, the story goes like this. She gets there and her mom's like, oh, hey, I got a box for you. And she's like, oh, okay. And then she goes and she looks and she's like, this is all my stuff from my childhood. And she's like, yeah, do you want it? And she's like, well, I don't want it. And she's like, well, I don't want it. And she was just like, my wife was like heartbroken because she had to get rid of stuff. But, your parents' house isn't your secondary storage building.
Right. Well, it is for a little while, to be fair. Our youngest is still living in a smallish space. I'm not going to make her take all her things. Even our oldest has taken everything except one box where she's like, I don't need that. And I'm like, you're 22. I'm going to wait until you're 30 to make that decision, just because you change your mind in that frame. And she's getting closer to that age now. But it's literally marked, give to her at age 30 and then hand it over.
You've pre-bought the present on one of her big milestone birthdays.
Exactly.
It's just planning.
Cute you were when you were 5. Okay. So, but I think a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs aren't necessarily, I mean, some of them might love what we're doing, downsizing, living on an island, living on a boat. Many people would like that. Others want to accumulate. They want to become an entrepreneur because they imagine they can buy the mini mansion or maybe the big mansion and buy the 12 different cars. And, there's no judgment in that. It's just a different story.
I had that, not to that extreme, but I had the big house on the golf course in the nice part of Austin. And I had the $70,000 car and the $50,000, I had all that stuff. It did nothing for me. One of the things me and my wife are talking about is when we're trying to have a child, and when we do have a child, and all my children are grown up, but we want to do things a little bit differently and actually raise our child in travel. There are things called world schooling. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but essentially like you get together in like Germany with like 5 other families that have kids around your age, and then you hire a teacher and you stay there for like 3 months at a time, and you kind of like, and then you can bounce because a lot of them are connected. You can bounce from one and do 3 months and then take your kid off for a month or two, then go to another one that starts 3 months in a different part of the world. So that's kind of our initial planning.
Yeah, that sounds great. I live in the United States. I've always lived here. I'm 4th generation American Swedish, of all things.
Okay.
Not everybody guesses me to be Swedish, but both of our daughters are blonde hair and blue-eyed. And we did raise them learning Swedish, which I am fluent in because there are language camps in the United States that I attended starting from when I was 9. They went starting when they were 6 or 7. And yeah, every summer. And it's amazing how much a kid will pick up. And I did study in college over in Sweden as well. Plus, we brought in au pairs from Sweden to live in our home. And their directive was, while you're working with the kids, you need to speak Swedish. So both of our kids are very fluent, kids, adults. Do you still call them kids when they're adults?
Yeah, they're always your children. They're always kids.
Right.
Right.
So, yeah. And so
who says my adults?
Yeah.
My adults are coming over tomorrow. What? They'll always be kids.
Really good point. Excellent point.
I'm very good at sarcastic observations. That's one of my core skill sets.
And I love them. Absolutely. Very cool. But yeah, raising people that are more global, more lingual, if you will, it exercises their brains in ways that you just can't have any other way.
I tell you, when I first visited Romania, I was in my early 20s, and it literally changed the way I thought about the world. Just seeing what people considered to be poverty versus what they consider to be middle class, and, versus the way, I met people that were in their 60s and 70s and like literally like had never been to a restaurant in their life and had no desire to go to one. Now, I'm a foodie kind of person. So like, to me, I couldn't imagine that. Right. But like, they were just like, why would I pay somebody to make me food? There's food in my refrigerator, and I can go to the open market and get food. Like, why would I pay somebody for that? So it's interesting. It really opens your worldview when you start to go to other countries, and you begin to see, like when you go to Southeast Asia, a lot of those countries, the collective is more important than the individual, whereas Americans are more about rugged individualism. Mm-hmm. And so you can see that even in just the way that they interact with each other. In America, we give each other space, right? So when somebody's coming, we kind of step and slide around each other because we all have our bubble, even in this more crowded places. But when you go to like Bangkok or, somewhere in Bali, and there's a lot of people, they're just like elbowing you and move, because you're just one cell in the body. So to them, it's just like, and I had a very hard time adjusting to that because I'd be like, excuse you, you're just kind of like, and so when you travel and you see these different worldviews and the different way they think about things and just how their societies are structured in Thailand, you can't say a bad thing about the king. You literally can get arrested. So like, while you're in Thailand, like they have like, dear foreigners, please remember, we will throw you in jail if you talk bad about our king. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. But you see these sort of things and you're just like, can you imagine if they passed a law that said you couldn't speak bad about the American leader? First of all, like 51 or 49% of the population would immediately lose 98% of what they talk about.
Absolutely.
Right?
Oh, for real.
So are we talking about business here?
We are.
That's a great conversation.
I know. I never, this is why I really don't script out these things. I know we're going to talk about business. I know you're in business. I know you have an amazing story. We're going to get there. But I also think for our audience, if our banter here is inspiring you or exciting you because you're like, I want to know what that's like. I want to know what it's like to get jostled around in another country or to have my mind expanded because of this, or I want to raise my kids that way. That's why we're here. This is what I've always been saying.
Fair enough.
You have a calling in your heart to start a business. I believe that calling was made for you. You didn't make that. It was there. It's always existed. It's always been there. But maybe when you were 20 years old, somebody said, you should be a fill in the blank. And you went to school and you did that thing. And now you're tired. You're burned out, or AI is replacing you. And now you can tap back into what's inside. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? So let's dig into DM's story here.
Okay.
What did you go to school for? Let's just start there. What did you told to do, if anything?
Well, I wasn't told to do much. Well, if I was, I certainly wasn't listening. Ask my parents. The most difficult children often become the best adults. I don't know if you know that. The child that questions everything is the adult that questions everything, right? So it's the difficult kids that become successful. All right, so let's go back to the question, which was got me off.
No, it's all good. I'm like, I was the good kid. I'm okay. I'm successful. What are you saying? The little girl is like, no. No, I said, where were you? Okay, let's go back further. When you were, say, early teen, and you're starting to think about adult things, what did you think you would do? What did you think you would do? And then maybe how did others reform where you went?
So for a while, I was told, because I was the kid who argued. And what do you tell kids who argue? You should be a
lawyer.
A lawyer, exactly. And I loved LA Law, if you remember that show from back in the day. And so I thought I'll be a lawyer. However, the socioeconomic situation that I was in, and the fact that I graduated high school with a 2.43 GPA, 1,012 out of 1,542, that probably wasn't in the cards for me. Not without a lot of junior college. And I was one of those people that I was like, I graduated, get me out of here. I started making money at 14. I think I told you about this the other day, but I knew when I grew up, I didn't want to be poor. That was it. That was my goal, because I knew what it was like to be poor. I knew what it was like to be really poor. And there's a distinction there, trust me. Okay. And I knew I did not want either of those in my life or for whoever my partner was, my children. I didn't want that for them. I wanted them to have choices. I wanted them to have a better life than I had. And so to me, I was just looking around at how to make money. And that's how I became an entrepreneur. Is I was always looking for ways, because my parents sort of had this philosophy of like, listen, you got clothes on your back. You might be a little skinnier than you're supposed to be, but you're not starving to death. So you got a roof over your head. What more do you want? Like, that's it. If you want better clothes, then we can buy for you, because I was the oldest of 6 kids. If you want better shoes, if you want to go to those extra activities that cost money, if you want these things, you need to earn the money. And I was just like, and that's how I got into being an entrepreneur so young, is I needed money to live, because my parents put me in a private school. My stepmom worked at the private school so we could go. So everyone else was paying a lot of money to be there. We were just there because mom watched kids in the morning. So it was one of those situations where I didn't know what I wanted to be until about 15. Then when I was 15, it was the summer I turned 16. So I think I might have been 16. I went down and I stayed. I used to be very heavily involved in church. And I went down and I stayed in Mississippi. And in the South at that time, when you were 14 or 12 in the group of churches I was in, if you say, I'm going to be a pastor or I'm a preacher, they're like, all right, get up here. And I was like, wait, what? And they're like, so they would have this session where you got like 5 to 7 minutes and you'd get up and give a little sermon, and they would do 3 young men. And it was like, so my first time public speaking, I spoke to 500 or 700 teenagers. So I get up in front of everybody. I'm the last one. And what they do is they ring a bell when you finish. Ding, 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 ding. Okay, your time's up. So the first guy goes, and he's like, so I'm 6, he's probably like 18, 19. And he's like, he's been doing this for 6 or 7 years. And he's just like, the Bible says this. And if you turn here, and like, he knew all the stuff, and like, how like intimidated, and they ring his bell at 7 minutes. And then the next one gets up, and the kid's like 8 years old. And he's got like a suit on, and he's just like, the Bible says in Romans chapter 4, you know, and I'm just like, holy cow, how am I supposed to, 5 to 7 minutes, ding, 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 ding. So I get up, and I'm just like, I literally get up there and I start, and I'm just shaking. And then I just start, and I don't remember everything, but 40 minutes later, altars are full. The whole place is supposed to be a 5-minute little sermonette. They gave me like 45 minutes. They did an altar call. They didn't normally do that. And I was just like, I guess this is what I'm supposed to do.
Wow.
So I did that for about 10 more years, went back. We moved. I was in youth group, and they asked me to speak in church. And when I spoke in church, the youth director came to me and said, I don't want to speak anymore while you're here. So when you're here, you're going to teach the lessons, and I'll organize the youth group, but you are clearly the teacher and leader here. At 16. Then I went off to college. That's what I went to school for, pastoral theology. 18 years old. Somebody says, hey, can you send somebody out here to speak for our little church out in the country, because we don't have a pastor anymore, and we'd like, one of your students to come. And they're like, send Dennis out there, DM, I went by Dennis at the time. Send him out there. So I go out there, and it's like 2 families, like 8 people. And they're like, would you consider coming every weekend and being like a student pastor, and then like just become a pastor? I was like, sure. And then took that over. We grew it to about, 50, 60 people, and got it to where they could actually afford a preacher after a little while. And then boom. So that's kind of what my initial trajectory was. But I always had a pretty firm belief for me that ministry wasn't going to provide the life that I wanted financially. And I didn't think that it should, unless I was in some sort of mega church but all the churches that I was in, it was just like, if you got it up to 300 people, you're pretty good at what you do. Cause we were like very far right wing, no TV, no skirts only on ladies. I'd have people ask me, are you some sort of Pentecostal? Like, no, I'm Baptist. So anyway, I always made my own money.
Yeah.
And then, I pastored churches. I did mission work in Romania and other places. And so I've had 2 careers that have kind of paralleled. There's the pastor that I stopped doing at 36, which is now 12 years ago. And then there's the entrepreneur that I will probably do in some form or fashion, until the day I die.
Right. Wow. I'm curious. You said at 14, you did kind of your first entrepreneurial thing. What was it?
So long story short, I learned that it was easier for me to talk to adults than most kids. And so every kid wants to mow a lawn and get $20 or $10 or whatever, they're willing to shovel a walk. The hardest part at that time, I can't speak to kids now, but at that time, the hardest part was getting the jobs, not doing them. Because we're all, mom and dad are just like, it's light out. It's not negative 20 degrees. Go play outside. You know how parents were,
Yep.
So we're outside, and it's just like, okay, well, let's make some money. So essentially what I did was I got the snow shoveling jobs, the lawn mowing jobs, the leaf raking jobs, and the paper routes. And I got them all. And then my brother and his friends did the work, and I collected the money, and I kept half the money, and I gave half the money to them. And then they'd be like, oh, it's no fair. And I said, well, go get your own clients. And they'd be like, no, I don't want to knock on doors. Okay. So to me, the hardest part is doing that lawn mowing, because I hate being hot, and I hate being sweaty, and I hate being, dirty. To you, the hardest part is going up and asking for the money. So between the 2 of us, we're both doing the thing that's easiest, and we're getting the thing done and making money in the process.
And since I know a little bit about your current business, you're still doing it.
That's what people say. They're like, are you an entrepreneur or just a great delegator?
I love it. I love it. I love it. So, obviously you're not still raking lawns and all that. In between, you did a few different things. How long have you been doing what you're doing with the legal marketing?
22 years.
Okay. So you were doing that wall pastoring for the last 10 years of doing that as well. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just trying to do the math here. So 22. Okay. So yeah, with that pretty.
But I also did some other stuff. I mean, in Romania, that was when I was, it was a 6x9 magnet. We called it the just in case emergency guide. There was poison control, animal control, on-call nurse at the hospital, emergency power outage number. And then what I did was I was like, oh, that's okay, let's do that. And then I put little 2x2 squares. I think there was eight, 504 grand. Yeah, because I remember my margins slightly. So yeah, we did $500 a square. And then we would put two little squares in it, and we would call like the community liaison police officer, the community liaison fire department person, the Red Cross. And we would say, hey, we've got these magnets. They've got local like insurance, nothing like strip clubs or anything that would offend families, liquor stores, whatever. We've got this magnet. We'd love to put your logo on it and you can pass it out at community activities. And they'd be like, yeah, this is great. So then we would call people and be like, hey, we're working with your fire department and putting together this magnet for refrigerators in your community. Would you like to be the exclusive mortgage agent? And they'd be like, heck yeah. Or they'd be like, can you call me back? And I'd say, sure, but I got 10 other people on the list just like you that as soon as we hang up, I'm calling them. And if they're like, that's fine, then I knew they weren't really interested anyway. And if they're like, well, hold on. Sale.
Yeah. So basically marketing. You've always been doing marketing.
Advertising since 18. Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, this has been so much fun. Time is flying by. We're going to take a quick break, come back, and I have some more questions. Really looking for some inspiration or advice you may have for people looking to step into entrepreneurship as well. So hang in there. You want to hear this.
It'll be good.
Hey, coffee aficionados and entrepreneurs, LeAnn Lyon here. Are you craving that caffeine kick, but looking for a healthier alternative? Well, 9 years ago, I discovered the ultimate collection of energizing options to fuel your entrepreneurial spirit without the jitters. Discover your next favorite pick-me-up today and keep your business dreams brewing strong. Hear what it did for me by visiting this website, whyIlovemycoffee.com. Yes, that's the URL, whyIlovemycoffee.com, because your peak performance deserves more than just another cup of joe. We are back, and now I'm going to dig into some deep questions. You ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. So you've basically been an entrepreneur all of your life since puberty, basically. But you've switched directions a couple of times. You did the magnets, now you're doing legal marketing. Is there something that you wish? Oh, and by the way, I noted you said you were on dial-up. You know that AOL is finally going to end its dial-up.
I saw that.
It still does.
I didn't know it existed. I saw that the other day. I was like, what? That'd be like them saying, they just stopped the chariot races in Rome today. You know what I mean? You're just like, oh, those are still around? I thought that was a different empire.
Totally. But besides, the fact that, technology is going to change, what did you wish you had known, say, as you got things started with your career, with entrepreneurship in general?
That it's a marathon, not a sprint. I always thought, you know what? I could just get and listen, when you are a driven person that has a little bit of, it's fairly intelligent, sometimes you can do things fairly quickly. And, but as I moved from thing to thing, even if I would see success, it really wasn't until I'd see this big success. I make a lot of money. And I used to see myself as a conduit for money. So I didn't see money as mine. I saw it as where, and I still believe that it's an energy source, because if you think about it, all that paper represents at its core is a day's work, right? That's what a dollar means. It means the average the average day's wages. Of course, with inflation, everything's changed like that. So one of the things I'm really big about, and I can't do it here but like in the US, I didn't touch physical cash sometimes for months or even a year more at a time, because I felt like what you were doing is you were encapsulating energy by putting it into a physical form instead of doing that. So over time, growing, learning, giving, I read something a few years back, which kind of reignited my entrepreneurial drive, because when you have success I grew up at 14, 15, 16, I made more than my own parents, but they couldn't take any of the money because they were like, go get your own money. And so then I did. And then they were just like frustrated about it. And I'm just like, you told me to. But like, as time progressed, so like at 22, in my 20s, when I started that first business with the magnets, in a year, we were doing 5 million with a net 25% profit margin. So we were netting between me and my partner about 1.25 million a year. I signed off and I was getting about 350, 400 a year, and he was running the day to day, and he made about twice as much as me. But when you're 22, 21 years old, whatever, your early 20s, and you're making 300, 350, 400 grand, you're just like, life's easy. Why is everybody complaining about life? This is easy. And my partner ripped me off, and I won't get into the time. We don't have time of the story, but he ripped me off. And I'll just say this real quick, a truncated version of this story. A year later, I'm driving by, and I see the office, 7,000 square feet, 30, 40 employees. I know what we're doing. I said to myself, man, I could kill him. I said that in my head, in my heart. And I was like, nope. And I pulled into the parking lot. I parked. I walked in. And now this is a couple years later, millions of dollars out of my pocket, whatever. So I walk in, and the receptionist knows me. She's like, because she knew what had happened, that he basically bankrupted the company and reopened it in his wife's name while I was out of state, living out of state. So she's like, she called him. He's like, yeah, send him up. So I sit down and I sit across from him, and I'm like, listen, I'm going to, for sake of story, I'll just say Joe, which is my son's name, but my son didn't rip me off before he was born. Listen, Joe, I don't even know if you think that you need this, but I want you to know that I forgive you. When I said that, he started bawling. He said to me, man, ever since I did to you what I did to you, my life has been awful. My son's in jail for murder for life. He did a drive-by shooting. My wife has left me. I basically was cheating with women, and this happened. And he just told me all this. He literally said, I will sign the company over to you right now if you'll come back. And I was like, no, I don't, because he had been doing some shady stuff, had basically taken a product that I had invented with the scripts that I had written and the people that I had trained, and made millions of dollars for a number of years. But what he started doing is reopening every 6 months. He ended up going to jail, his mom going to jail, his sister being on probation, because he would reopen in their names. Yeah. And then sell a bunch of product until the clients were like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Bankrupt it. Send them all the things. Sorry, this company's bankrupt. Reopen the next day under a new name, exact same product, relaunch a website. And that was his business model, because it doubled his margins.
Wow.
So I was just like, no, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, when you have success, number one, you don't see it stopping. Number two, you don't see that you could ever do anything but that. But when you have success and then you fall, and then you have a success and then you fall, and then you have a success and then you fall, after a while, you just kind of sit back and be like, man, I did corporate for a few years. It was really because my kids, who are now grown, were teenagers, and I needed to be more plugged in. And so, you have teenagers, you need to be there. There's a lot that they're going through. And I was an entrepreneur, just like everywhere, taking care of 1 million people, but not the 4 that mattered the most. Mm-hmm. So, and then sometimes that's what we do as entrepreneurs. Yeah. We work super hard to take care of some people that we never spend time with, Mm-hmm. So it became discouraging, and then did the corporate thing. And I read something, and it was like the average first generation millionaire is like 52 years old. They've had like 3 or 4 failed companies. They've filed bankruptcy 2.5 times. That's the average first generation millionaire. And when I read that, I was like, I'm not behind. I got plenty of time. Like, I thought I had missed my window.
Right.
I thought I had missed my chance. Now I'm kind of in that little sweet spot where I still got energy and I got a little bit of life experience, and applying them together, I hope, makes me a better business owner or entrepreneur than I've ever been.
Yeah.
But had I stayed in that mind frame of, oh, it's a sprint and I fell 5 times after 5 sprints, I might not have ever gotten back on, did what I did the last 5 years with my former partner, another legal marketing company, and then now launching this a little over a year ago.
Okay. You know, one of my least favorite quotes is the one that says, how you do anything is how you do everything, except clearly that was true with your original magnet company business partner. I mean, it just sometimes, you know, if it looks like cheese, smells like cheese, it's probably cheese.
Well, and you know, my dad actually told me, he's shady, don't work with him. And I said, you're saying that because he's black, and I just cut it off there in my mind, didn't listen to what he said.
Yeah.
So to anybody who might be younger, because Gen Z and Alpha, there's only 2 outlets that they respect now, according to statistics: TikTok and podcasts. Those are their primary forms of things where they get their information from.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're young, don't assume that every opinion of an older person is because of some lack of knowledge that you possess as a more informed person as far as society goes. Because I wrote off a lot of opinions based on prejudice, because I'm just the kind of person, I meet a person, I get to know them. And like I said, sometimes I get taken advantage of it for that, but I would rather be taken advantage of for being a good person than never be taken advantage of and be a jerk.
Right.
And hurt people and mean, or whatever, however you want to say it.
Yeah. Well, that was a mouthful, but amazing. Wow. Just, I'm soaking this up, to be honest. And what I hear you say also is, you know, you didn't have the prejudice. You weren't looking for that. You were willing to be open and let people, and I've done the same thing. And I've been burned likewise. You know, it's interesting, the whole sprint versus marathon analogy, though. Both of those seem to have a end to them. There is a finish line. And I wonder sometimes if entrepreneurship ever really has a finish line. I don't meet many entrepreneurs who talk about retirement, actually.
No, I think what I foresee for myself is becoming less and less involved in my company, but still overseeing it as a whole. Mm-hmm. And then eventually most of my energy will be spent on passion projects. And what I love about having, and I've always done this, I think that every person who has means and who is an entrepreneur should have some sort of passion project, something they do not expect to make money out of. Right. They purely do it for the joy and love of doing it. Right. And sometimes that is entrepreneurship itself, but that is not sustainable as your hobby. I've learned that. In my 20s, I believed you must monetize every minute. I told myself that I didn't watch TV. I didn't waste time. All the way up till I was 36, had a nervous breakdown and spent 1.5 years in bed. I thought I was indestructible. Full-time pastor, full-time business, sometimes 2 full-time businesses, family, friends, blah, 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 you know. But I didn't waste any time. Every moment must be monetized. That's what I believed in my head. Wow. But then I came to the point where it was just like my body and my nervous system was like, nope, no more. We're done here. And spent 1.5 years in bed thinking I had MS like my dad, learning it was mental health, getting up, learning the right medications, and getting back into life and picking up the pieces even from that. So you want to talk about starting over, and how did I survive during that time? For the first time in my marriage, my wife took a little job, but I could work 2 afternoons a week for about 3 hours. And in that time, I created my own little company. I flipped newspaper space. I did what I called a business highlight section in a community. I bought a full page in little towns all across America, had a big contract with a newspaper company. And I would call them and I'd say, hey, we're doing the fall business highlights section. We're going to feature 10 businesses in this newspaper. I'm with this company. It's an outside company. Yeah. The highlight business news. That was the name of my company. Okay. So we went in, we did that. I would work about 6 hours a week and I would make enough to take care of my family. But I would literally go 3 hours and then I would just go fall into bed and like cry for a few hours and then fall asleep and sleep for the next 2 or 3 days and then get up and do it again.
Wow. Yeah, I for the audience here, if you haven't been inspired by all these stories, check your pulse. Really. He's literally reinvented himself multiple times. You've heard the stories here. All of his contact information is below, whether you're listening on podcast or YouTube. Just, go down beneath here. Check him out. I know you're on LinkedIn. Is there anywhere else that you would encourage people to come visit you at?
Yeah, I'm actually getting ready to start or launch a website. It'll probably be done by the time this goes out, depending on your turnaround. But DM, letter D, letter M, ondemand.expert. And it's podcast guest, podcast host, podcast network founder. And you could just click through and see those 3 aspects of who I am and what I'm doing. And then a little thing on the bottom, you could email my one of my VAs, and then they'll get a hold of me and we'll connect out. If you want to directly have conversation, hit me up on LinkedIn. That's the best place to get a hold of me. Okay. If you want to go into a system where you're going to get you know what I mean? Nurtured as a lead and, all the stuff that I have to do as a marketer to make a living, then come in through one of those other ways.
Excellent. Well, I want to bring it full circle because it was something you just touched on and then we're done for today. But you said we talked at the beginning kind of at length about, downsizing, being smaller. And part of that for me is that opportunity, as you just talked about now, of being able to be more philanthropic, about having that cause or having that mission that you're not necessarily making money from. Ooh, I just got chills everywhere. But, that you're actually able to provide, because you can't give out of poverty. You can't give out of an empty cup. No. You have to fill your cup. You have to have your own needs met to whatever level you need your needs met. Now, we are simplifying. We're going to have our needs met by what we need to live on a boat or what we need to live on an island. But after that, everything else is abundance. If I could live on 10% and give 90%, that would be my dream right there.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that a lot of people are that way. I feel the same way. I find much more joy in giving than getting. I still probably one of the, and we'll end with this, probably one of the most fulfilling moments of my life. I used to send over, it wasn't a lot, but it's a few $100s a week. And there was an orphanage in the Philippines that I knew. I hadn't been to the Philippines, but my sister had worked there. So I'd send over money. And on Friday night, they would do a special dinner for the kids. Cause usually it's like rice and fish, whatever. Yeah. They would make like a special meal and they would have a movie night. They'd go rent a movie and the kids would play games. And basically you funded that. That was, and at the end of it, they would shoot a little video like, thank you, Mr. Dennis, for the food, and I remember looking at all these little kids on like a video or whatever that was sent to me. And I just remember thinking, man, $500, I've spent that on one meal for me. And sure, it was nice and it made my night, but I just made 75 kids a week with the same thing. We'll stop there.
Find your why, know your values, and would love to help you. Dan, thank you. Thanks for being here.
Totally.
I think we should do this again. But for our audience, we want to thank you as well for joining us on Beyond the Business Plan to unleash your joyful business potential. And remember, entrepreneurship is a voyage you can take with others. So find your tribe for the journey. Give us a like or subscribe, whatever you do on your favorite podcast platform, video platform, and keep shining and aligning with your purpose and us at Joyminder Solutions. Until we see you next time, I'm LeAnn Lyon, your Chief Joy Officer, signing off. Keep spreading the joy, keep leading with heart, and I will catch you on the next wave of success.
Hey, sales setters, are you ready to jumpstart your entrepreneurial journey or give your business a powerful refresh? Join us at the next and Restart Your Business Summit, where you'll discover the tools, strategies, and inspiration you need to thrive. Learn more at joyminder.com. That's JOYMINDER.com, and look for the Restart Your Business Summit icon. Don't miss out. Your future business awaits. Thank you all for joining us today on Beyond the Business Plan. It's been a joy and a privilege to share this space with you. For more inspiring stories, tools, and actionable insights, make sure to follow us on your favorite video platform. Visit my website, LeAnnLyon.com, and keep leading with heart. And I'll catch you on the next wave of success.